Hello, class. Welcome to the 10th lesson of this course. Today, we will be covering Unit 11 of Book 1. In this unit, we're going to be talking about large numbers. So we'll discuss significant figures, integers, scientific notations, what they look like and what they mean, and so on. So let us begin. For the first warm-up of this unit, I want you guys to answer these two questions over here after you read this passage. So you have this large numbers passage over here. I want you guys to read it first and then answer these two questions. So the first one asks, what is the benefit of scientific notation? And the second one asks, why are significant figures important? Okay, so pause this video, read the passage, try answering these questions yourselves first. And once you're done, resume the video and we'll go through the answers together. Here are the answers. For the first one, what is the benefit of scientific notation? It is useful for expressing very large or very small quantities that are often lengthy and difficult to read. So when you start dealing with very large numbers like in the billions and trillions, it would be troublesome to have to write all those zeros all the time. So instead, we use the scientific notation so that we can shorten it and not have to write all those zeros, don't have to read all those zeros. It'll be easier to see. For the second one, why are significant figures important? They are important because they determine the accuracy of a quantity. Depending on what significant figures you're using, you can end up with two different numbers based on what you rounded, right? So that's why it's very important to keep in mind on what significant figures you're using, okay? So those are the answers for the first warm-up. Moving on. For the second warm-up, I want you guys to fill in the blanks in the table down here. So you see that we have this table with 3 blanks. I want you to use the passage that we read earlier to help figure out what those words are. And I want you to use the clues given in the same table. So you see that we have for each row an error and the consequence. So the error is the mistake and the consequence is the result of that mistake. All right. So I want you to try this out yourselves first. Read the passage and then fill in the blanks. Pause the video, try it out yourselves. And when you're done, resume the video and we will go through the answers together. Here are the answers. For the first one, the wrong blank was applied to a calculation. And the result of that is that the result of a calculation was too large. The wrong exponent was applied to a calculation. So if you use the wrong exponent, you can significantly change the answer of your calculations, as mentioned here in page 2 of the passage. So you see in the first square over here, the person used the wrong exponent for their energy calculation, and that results in having an answer that was way too large, okay? So for the second row, an expression was rounded to too few significant figures. The result of that is that the result could cause a serious rounding error. So we talked about earlier how significant figures are important because depending on what significant figures you're using, you can end up with different answers. Rounding something to 3 significant figures would give you a different answer than rounding something to 4 significant figures. And if you use the wrong one, then you end up with a rounding error, as mentioned here. For the last row, some quantities did not have leading and trailing zeros. And the results are not as clear as they could be. So depending on what you're dealing with, sometimes they require you to use leading and trailing zeros just to have a more clear answer. So those are important for that, okay? Now we're moving on to the next section. For the first vocabulary segment of this unit, I want you guys to write a word or phrase that is similar in meaning to the underlined part for each of the following sentences. So we have 4 sentences here, and for each sentence, they have an underlined segment. I want you to find the word or phrase that is similar in meaning to the underlined parts. So we have 0 at the end of a decimal, quantities that represent whole units, digits indicating level of precision, and multiplied by itself 5 times. As you can see, you're also given some of the letters of the words or phrases you need to write as a clue. So I want you guys to pause this video, try this out yourselves first, and once you're done, resume the video and we will go through the answers together. Here are the answers. So a zero at the end of a decimal can indicate how accurate a quantity is. We call this zero a trailing zero. So the trailing zeros happens after the decimal. So at the end of the decimal, we have these zeros. We call them trailing zeros. If we have the zeros before the decimal, we call those a leading zero, as was mentioned in the passage. For the second one, working with quantities that represent whole units is sometimes easier than working with decimals. So the answer to this one is integers. That's just the definition of integers, quantities that represent whole units. For the third one, the wrong number of digits indicating level of precision can lead to inaccurate calculations. We call these digits significant figures. As we talked about earlier, depending on what significant figures you're using, you end up with different answers. And it could lead to inaccurate calculations if we have the wrong significant figures, as we also have talked about. And for the last one, the expression 10(5) is referred to as 10 multiplied by itself 5 times. So we call this to the 5th power or to the power of 5. So 10 to the 5th power is referring to itself. It is referred to as 10 multiplied by itself 5 times. That's what an exponent is, okay? So those are the answers. We're moving on to the next segment. For the next vocabulary segment, I want you to fill in the blanks with the correct words or phrases that are given up here. So we have rounding error, scientific notation, leading zero, cubed, exponent, and squared. Okay, so I want you to use these words, fill in the blanks. I want you to try it out yourselves first, pause the video, try it, and then resume the video for the answers. Here are the answers. If a quantity is blank, it is multiplied by itself. If a quantity is squared, it is multiplied by itself. So square is 2, right? So it's exponent 2. So that's why it's multiplied by itself. Next, a and blank does not change the value of a quantity. A leading zero does not change the value of a quantity. So leading zeros are just the zeros that are in front of the decimal. They don't change the value of the quantity if you have them there or not. Okay. Next, 3 blank equals 27. 3 cubed equals 27. So that's 3 to the power of 3. So that's 3 times 3. 3 times 3 times 3. Okay, so that would equal to 27. For the fourth one, expressing 0.29 as 0.3 is likely to cause a rounding error. So as you can see here, if we round this, we have 2 different results. Depending on what significant figures you're trying to use, you could end up with a rounding error if you don't use the correct significant figures. For the fifth one, very small quantities are easier to read in blank. Very small quantities are easier to read in scientific notation. So we talked about that in the warm-up. The last one, in the expression 2x, the exponent is x. So 2 to the power of x, we call this x the exponent, okay? Those are the answers. Now we're moving on to the next segment. For the first listening segment of this unit, I want you to listen to the audio clip of the passage we've been using so far. After you listen to the audio clip, I want you to fill in the blank of the sentence down here. If a quantity is rounded to too few significant digits, resulting calculations may contain blank errors. So listen to the audio clip, pause the video, fill in the blank yourself, and once you're done, resume the video and we'll go through the answers together. Here's the audio clip.
Unit 11, Large numbers. Exercise 5, page 25.
From daryl.tillman@lgbylabs.net to angela.foster@lgbylabs.net. Subject, report corrections. Hi, Angela. I discovered some errors on my latest report. Please use these corrections instead. Page 2. I used the wrong exponent for my energy calculation. I accidentally raised the meters to the third power. The answer was way too large. Meters should be squared. M equals 30 squared, not cubed. M equals 30 cubed. Page 4. My scientific notation was off. I wrote 4,180,000 equals 4.2 times 10 to the 6. But this might cause a serious rounding error. This is the appropriate number of significant figures. 4.18 times 10 to the 6th. Page 9. These calculations are correct. However, they could be clearer. I meant to include leading zeros and trailing zeros. Integers on this page look like this: 005.000 instead of 5, etc. Sorry about the confusion. I'm still learning. Daryl.
So that was the audio clip. Here's the answer. If a quantity is rounded to two few significant digits, resulting calculations may contain rounding errors. So we've been talking about that over and over. So that's the answers for this segment. Moving on. For the next listening segment, I want you to listen to a conversation between an intern and a scientist. Once you finish listening, I want you to mark which of the following statements are true or false. So we have these three statements here. The man made a calculation with the wrong exponent. The man did not include enough digits in an expression, and the woman identified a rounding error in the report. So I want you to listen to the audio clip, then pause the video, answer true or false. And when you're done, resume the video and we'll go through the answers together. Here's the audio clip.
Exercises 6 and 7, page 25.
Did you get my report corrections?
Yes, thanks for sending those. You identified some major errors.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about those. Were the corrections accurate at least?
Mostly, but let's go over significant figures.
Sure. I'm supposed to round to 2 decimal places, right?
Actually, company policy requires accuracy to 3 places.
Oh, so my quantity needs 1 more trailing zero.
Exactly. Here, the last digit is 0. But when it's not, you might cause a rounding error.
I'll remember that. Thanks.
So that was the audio clip. If you need to hear it again, then rewind this video to the point where I began the audio clip. Let's go through the answers. The man made a calculation with the wrong exponent. The answer to this one is false. It wasn't the exponent he had wrong. It was the number of decimal places, right? So therefore, for the second one, the man did not include enough digits in an expression. The answer is true. That was his problem. He didn't have enough digits. And in the third one, the woman identified a rounding error in the report. The answer is false. He didn't make a rounding error, but she said that because of the wrong number of digits, it could lead to a rounding error, right? So those are the answers to this segment. Moving on. For the next listening segment, I want you to listen to the conversation again, and this time, based on what you hear, fill in the blanks of the incomplete sentences in the conversation. So listen to the audio clip again, pause the video, fill in the blanks yourselves first, and then when you're done with all of that, resume the video and we'll go through the answers together. Here's the audio clip.
Exercises 6 and 7, page 25.
Did you get my report corrections?
Yes, thanks for sending those. You identified some major errors.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about those. Were the corrections accurate at least?
Mostly. But let's go over significant figures.
Sure. I'm supposed to round to 2 decimal places, right?
Actually, company policy requires accuracy to 3 places.
Oh, so my quantity needs 1 more trailing 0.
Exactly. Here, the last digit is 0. But when it's not, you might cause a rounding error.
I'll remember that. Thanks.
So that was the audio clip. If you need to hear it again, rewind this video to the point where I began the audio clip. Here are the answers. Did you get my report corrections? Yes, thanks for sending those. You identified some major errors. Yeah, I'm really sorry about those. Were the corrections accurate at least? Mostly, but let's go over significant figures. Sure, I'm supposed to round to 2 decimal places, right? Actually, company policy requires accuracy to 3 places. Oh, so my quantity needs 1 more trailing 0. Exactly. Here, the last digit is 0, but when it's not, you might cause a rounding error. I'll remember that. Thanks. So those are the answers. Now we're moving on to the next section. For the speaking segment of this unit, I want you to fill in the blanks of the following conversation using the given sentences. So we have 4 sentences up here. You need to use each one and figure out where they belong to which blank. We have, but let's go over scientific notation. You identified some major errors. You always want 1 whole digit before the decimal, and it should be 2.9 times 10 to the 7th power. Okay, so pause this video, fill in the blanks yourselves first, and when you're done, either by yourself or with a partner, try practicing speaking the conversation, okay? And when you're done with all of that, resume the video and I will show you what the conversation sounds like. Here's the conversation. Did you get my report corrections? Yes, you identified some major errors. I'm really sorry about those. Were the corrections accurate at least? Mostly, but let's go over scientific notation. Sure, I'm supposed to multiply an integer by 10 to the nth power, right? Actually, it's not necessarily an integer. You always want 1 whole digit before the decimal. So 29 times 10 to the 6th power isn't right? No, it should be 2.9 times 10 to the 7th power. Okay, so that was the conversation. I hope you have something similar. Moving on. For the first writing segment of this unit, I want you to fill in the blank of the error correction table over here using the given words up here. So you can see that we have squared, decimal, trailing, power, and notation. So figure out which words belong to which section of this email, this table, and try it yourselves first. Pause the video, fill in the blanks yourselves first, and when you're done, resume the video, and we will go through the answers together. Here are the answers. Hi, Daryl. Thank you for your report corrections. However, a few things are still not quite right. Error. The wrong exponent was used in an energy calculation. Correction. The meters should be squared, not cubed. Error. You didn't include trailing zeros. Correction. Add 3 places after the decimal. Error. The scientific notation was missing an exponent. Correction. Raise quantities to the appropriate power. Be careful about these in the future, Angela. So those are the answers. Now we're moving on to the next segment. For the next writing segment, I want you to do the same thing as before. Use the given words to fill up this table, error correction table. So we have significant figures, cube, leading zeros, rounding error, exponent, and integers. All right. So pause this video, fill in the blanks yourselves first. And when you're done, resume the video and we will go through the answers together. Here are the answers. Hi, Daniel. Here are the following errors from your report and how to correct them. Error. You made a huge rounding error when you wrote 5.4. Correction. The correct number of significant figures is 5.43. Error. You need to include the leading zeros for your result. Correction. Change the integers of your result from 673 to 000673. Error. There was an incorrect exponent from one of your answers. Correction. You need to cube it, not square it. Make sure not to repeat these mistakes. Tim. So those were the answers, and that's it for this segment. So that was the last activity for this unit. If you guys need any additional help, you will have access to the vocabulary PowerPoints, which has the definitions of the vocabulary that we've covered today, as well as the Thai word equivalent for each of the vocabulary words. I hope to see you guys for the next unit. Goodbye.